everybody. Oh my God, I got a sister on the channel today that's gonna blow your mind. Oh man, she got a story to tell you. Man, I'm Anthony Brogdon. I'm an ordinary guy trying to do something extraordinary through the people who come on Strong Inspirations. I am super excited this sister coming on. She was highly recommended by hundreds and hundreds of people. You got to get this lady on the show because she got something to say that's pretty amazing, everybody. This is what we do as Strong Inspirations. I find these people, and let me tell you something. I am blessed to know that these folks, first of all, decide to come on the show because you know they vet me, man. I'm a, hey, who is this dude? You ain't heard this ain't CNN. But nonetheless, I do my best to give it to you straight, no chaser, to intoxicate your mind with this Black history to make you stagger. Oh man, I was tripping. I'm in a cigar group with some guys, they all high-end dudes. I'm them, right? And one of the guys came up to me and he said, man, I've been watching your show. I watch it almost once a week.
Wow.
He said, I get the notifications bell and I watch it thoroughly. He said, I've told quite a few people about you. I was like, really? I mean, I knew the guy, but I didn't know he felt that way. I had told him about it. He said he saw the one and he saw me cry on this one. And I cried a few times. This sister integrated a high school in Gainesville, Florida in 1965, and the students tried to kill her one day, in front of the school. And the principal would not let her use the telephone to call home.
Wow.
So she got beat up. She staggered. She went across the street. She called her dad, who was president of NAACP down in and this is 1965. This is 10 years after Brown versus Board of Education. Well, he comes, he picks her up. The doctor says, hey, you need to heal for a few days. Dad says, hey, man, well, okay, you ain't got to go back. Go back to the Black high school. It's cool. You in your senior year. She said, Dad, I ain't going to let them stop me. And that's when I boo-hooed.
Yeah.
It tripped me out. And now the lady got a PhD.
Wow.
She's more successful than all them kids that tried to hold her back. And then I cried on the time when the lady told me that she was starting a march in somewhere in Florida, somewhere, maybe South Carolina, I don't know, but wherever it was Marion Allen. Now, I distinctly remember her. She was having a march. And the sheriff called her the night before and said, y'all need to cancel that because I got death threats. She said, no, man, God got us.
Yeah.
Made me cry.
Wow.
Oh, man, it's incredible stuff that has come on this show, and I'm super grateful. I got a lot of stuff coming up, too. I'm going on the road.
Yeah.
In 2024. I got a lot of stuff happening here in Detroit. And, this is where I'm headquartered, but I'm coming out on the road. I'm trying to hook up stuff in wherever. You want me to come speak? Let me share this message. And my message is, ain't nothing wrong with Black people.
No.
Let's stop that thinking. Let's change the dynamic. And I'm not going to use that word slave no more. That we were not a slave, we were enslaved, and that's the new way of looking at it.
Yeah,
so we can talk about that. So let me say this:
yes.
Everybody, hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. I'm giving it to you, and I'm letting them give it to you. I do my best to ask intelligent questions. Hit the like button on this video. You're gonna love what this sister got to tell you. She ready to start talking now. I had to tell her, hold on, let me get this over with. Hit the notifications bell. You get a ding, a shock, a smoke signal. Your eyes twitch. Your pants fall down. Something to let you know there is new information on Strong Inspiration, and it's at least once or twice a week. And tell somebody, man, I could tell you sitting around, you telling all your buddies, hey, at work or whatever. Hey, man, let me tell you what I heard. And don't tell them where you heard it at. Don't do that. Let them know. Let this thing flow. We are over 2,200 subscribers. This needs to be thousands of people who get this content. And do that, my friends. When I said I'm going on the road, June 7th through the 9th, I'm in Kansas City, Kansas with my own, what I call Freedom Quindaro. We're going to make this happen where I invite you to come and meet me. I can only take 300 of you to come and meet me, and we're going to be at America's largest underground railroad site. I'm going to feed you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for one low price. Go to my website, businessintheblack.net. You're going to enjoy this because I'm rocking. We're going to dance a little bit too. And we're going to hear the voices of them ancestors. You're going to feel their spirit. I'm going to make sure of it. I'm serious so much though that I did a documentary called Business in the Black. I took this to over 40 cities on my own dime. Some of them I had shows where nobody showed up, but one or two people. And I felt good about it because one or two more people heard what I present to you in this film. It's streaming on Amazon. Enslaved Black folks who went to college, who own businesses. I tell you what they did and their name and so much more. I took it one step further and I wrote this book on it. It's become America's #1 Black business history book. You got to get you a copy of Black Business Book. And I don't add no commentary, my friends. I let the fact stand on its own merit, but I give you the reference section where you can learn more. And I've had a couple of people say, I just never heard that. I don't believe that. I'll show you where I got it from. Don't lie to you in this. This is good. Get you a copy of this. Every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. This year, I donated almost 300 books. I want them kids to hear this. We got to get this word. We got to feel better about ourselves. And that's a part of my aim, to inspire, educate, and entertain. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. I wish my middle name was Strong. It's been my brand word for a long time. In my world, strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the strong, good-looking lady on the show today. Come on, introduce yourself. Let's get it on. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name's Lakeesha Morrison. I'm a resident of Royal Oak, Michigan. Born and raised, and have rooted back way into early 1860s. Longest living landowners in Royal Oak and longest living descendant in Royal Oak. One of the first Black pioneering families in Royal Oak. So
all right, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. I don't mean no disrespect, but I got to ask a couple questions about you. I do it all again.
Yes.
What were you born and raised? Was it Royal Oak?
Yes, Royal Oak, Michigan.
Okay. Yep. Royal Oak is not a Black community per se. So you grew up around white people and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when you were just educating your viewers about that last story with the young lady that went to an all-white school, that was me. And that's why I was like, oh, yep, that been there, done that. So Royal Oak is primarily white families. We are trying to bring more of people of color into the community. It's definitely growing, but is it where it should be at right now? No, it's not.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. How is it to grow up around white people? Is that more enjoyable as long as you don't have some racial strife? I gotta ask that somehow.
Well, there's perks because the education system is much better in Royal Oak than my surrounding cities. So aside from that, growing up in Royal Oak, it can be pleasurable, but at the same, on the flip side, it's hard to feel comfortable when you don't see other people same color as you, same lifestyles as you, same family upbringing as you. So it has its ups and downs.
Okay.
When I was growing up in an all-white school and community, I wouldn't say it was a struggle, but it definitely wasn't how it is right now for my children. Because I am raising now children in the Royal Oak school system as well.
Sure.
So,
well, let me ask you this then. What is it? We've seen in many instances where someone grows up in that type of environment and they lose their identity.
Yes.
If you know what I mean. How do
Yeah.
you not lose your identity? Because they don't teach you Black history, I
Yeah.
suspect.
No, and when you say, do they teach us Black history? They teach us their history on
Right.
Black people.
Right.
And it was definitely an embarrassing subject in time when you're in an all-white school, when you're pulling out your history book and they're depicting Black people as animals and good for nothing, and they can't amount to anything. And like you said, you want to remove that word slaves, but in these history books, slaves was, you can compare that picture to an animal. So when you're in a classroom with nothing but white people, you're looked as an animal. So I will say that, like, I did have friends, but I also had a lot of enemies, a lot of people whose parents didn't educate their children on how to treat others as if you would treat themselves. And so I didn't have too many friends, but I had a few
Yeah.
friends, and
Yeah, sure,
you know,
sure.
it was
Sure.
hard, but I had a great family system at home. So, if I wasn't getting love at school, I was getting the love at home.
I love
Um,
it. I love it.
but it definitely was something that I wouldn't want my worst enemy to go through, because you don't find a sense of belonging when you're in a school with nothing but white children and peers. And
Yeah.
I have siblings, so it was myself, my siblings, and my cousins. So if you can imagine going to a school that had over 300 students and only being one of 10 Black children in that school, and in those 10 Black children were family members, you really don't you
Okay.
don't get a sense of belonging.
All right. Let me ask you this then. So whenever they saw something in the news or in the media about Black people, did they look at you and say, "What's your thought on this?" Or you speak on behalf of the Black race? I'm sure you got some of that, right?
Um, in recent days, yes, but growing up, no, because back then I think it was more embarrassment to ask those questions about my
Oh,
race.
okay. Okay. Okay.
So I never really experienced people saying, "Hey, did you see this?" or things like that. And I will say that my parents sheltered us a lot from a lot of things. So if there was a question or concern, we'd go right to our parents, and the next day it was never spoke on again.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so my
Oh,
parents were
man.
definitely there for our support system.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
I can
Uh,
give you examples of when, being educated in the white system in Royal Oak. I remember being as young as like 5 or 6 going to school, and I have an identical twin sister. The teacher couldn't teach the both of us because she couldn't tell us apart. Now, if it was my children now, they're in the same classroom. They're going to keep them in there because they're going to learn to find out the differences between the two of them. So,
oh.
there was moments when my parents and my aunts and uncles would have to go up to the school and have a conference with them, because it was stated, so and so, could you guys come up to the school so we can have a conference with the principal, with the superintendent, because we don't know how to teach these children. And, as I'm getting older, I'm like, what do you mean? How do you teach these children? You would teach them like any other child in the classroom. But since we were Black, they didn't think that we could learn the same way that our
Oh,
counterparts.
really? I
Yes,
got you. I
yeah,
got you. I
yeah.
got you.
So my parents were pretty upset, but they were pretty consistent with, like, no, we're going to give them the education that they deserve along with other
Yeah.
children.
All right. Now, how about this? How do white people think? Do you have an inside scoop that
I
you might
do.
be able to share with us on that note?
I do have an inside scoop because I'm married to a white man.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay.
yeah, the way I could say the encounters with a lot of white people that I've been in Royal Oak in my adult years have always been very protective of how they treat me and my children. They want to make sure that they come off, um, come off educated now that things are going on in our country, where we want to make sure Black people feel comfortable. So I feel like there's some that are like, it's a privilege to be Black, but then there's other people like, no, it's a privilege to be white because they're treated differently. So let's try to get them on the same pedestal as us, if that makes sense. But I would say the way that they think, they're still thinking back their history where, let's just get over it. It happened a long time ago. Let's try to do things differently. But you can't move forward without like educating yourself and knowing what happened, because history repeats itself. So, I see both sides. My husband I'm still educating him because he's from a neighboring city in Clawson where there was no Black students. From elementary all the way to high school, he only seen one biracial child. So he doesn't know, the ins and outs of Black culture, Black history, and being around Black people. So it's always educating someone, our white counterparts too. So.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna stay on that just a tag. That's a different dynamic, and we get to the story. I grew up in Detroit. Went to Cass Tech. Never had much interaction with white people, and I don't know how to. I just got to be honest. I need to, and I've been self-employed all my years, but it's always been a Black person who bought from me. Is there something to? Can you feel comfortable in that world where you say Black things to white people? I wouldn't know how to do it because I would feel, kind of uncomfortable. And a lot of times when Black people talk and they say something about white people, we whisper or, what have you. How does that work? Can you be in that crowd, say, you get my question, I guess, right?
I do, but I'm going to probably catch you off guard because me personally being in the surrounding that I am around nothing but white people, I feel comfortable saying and doing how I feel around them because at this point, if they don't know me, then they're going to get to know me. So I'm going to say and do as I please.
I love it.
But on the flip side, when I'm in a community where it's a lot of Black students or adults or students, children, whoever it is, it's not that I don't feel uncomfortable, but I have to watch how I talk because I've picked up a lot of things from my white friends or my white families that might not rub a Black person comfortably, the ones that have not been around white people.
I got you. So. And so have you, how do you deal with Black history then? How do you, some of your white friends, do you try to say, hey, I need y'all to come over to the house? I'm gonna do a speech or something. We're gonna talk about this. So y'all know me and this is who I am. Is that an angle?
That is a thing that I did growing up. My father never made sure that we always knew our history, because the schools weren't teaching us correctly. It was always about the struggles that Black people went through. It was never about the progress, the success, and the things that they were doing to the community in years prior to where we're at right now. So Saturdays, we would learn about Black histories. Sundays would go to Black church. So we're always learning. So we would be able to bring this back to school and say, hey, I know we learned this in the history book, but this is your history. This is incorrect because my father's going to lead me through the right path. The school system, they're going to lead you to the path that they want to lead you through. So it was always learning my Black history through my family and at home. It was never really at school. It was always negative history, Black history. Yeah. So today, I'm always educating myself because now that my father's gone, who's teaching me? And yes, I can learn through online and I can learn, picking up a book, but I'm always learning because I was never giving the tools that other Black children were in Black schools. So I'm always learning. And, sadly, I didn't know about Juneteenth until my adult life. And because they weren't going to educate you that in school, any kind of progress and any success that Black people were going to do, I felt like I wasn't learning that in school. I was learning that at home.
Sure. This question just popped in mind. Hope you don't mind I ask it. I mean, no disrespect in this, but it's a good, legitimate question. Did you ever wish you were white?
I think you can answer that question. Yeah. I think I wanted to from as early as first grade up until about third or fourth grade. And really? I tell people this story too. I remember asking Santa Claus for white people hair, because white people hair can go this way, that way, do whatever it wants.
Sure.
That was one memory, and that will still stick in my memory, growing up in an all white school, is wishing that Santa Claus would give me white people hair. So yeah, I think I wanted a place of belonging when I wanted to be white. But once I realized that, like, there's things that white people can't do that black people can do. We can change our hair up. We can do this. We can do that. You know, at that point, I knew that, like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with being black. Having extra black students coming into the school that wasn't family and having a sense of belonging with them. Yeah, at that point, I knew that I didn't want to be white. I wanted to be
Oh
myself.
man, yeah, I can dig that. That's
Yeah.
legitimate. Okay, let me ask you this on the flip side. Can you go in the hood? Can you relate to the hood? And you know what I mean by the hood.
Yeah.
Can you go
Yeah.
in the hood and
Um,
hey brother, hey sister,
yeah.
and do that?
The younger me, yes. But the age that I am now, I don't think, it's not so much I couldn't. I just think that I wouldn't belong. I have friends that lived in like Southwest Detroit, or, you know, have family members, and I have family too in Detroit, 7 Mile and Schaefer. But, you know, summertime was meant to stay at grandma's house in that time. So yeah, when I was a child, I thought I was the coolest thing, and, you know, I could belong in Detroit. But I remember going to Southwest Detroit with a friend. I had been like 23, 24, and I had a gentleman come up to me and try to hit on me. And I'm like, oh, I have a
A
husband at
black guy,
home.
a
No,
black
thank
guy.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, a black guy.
black guy. Right,
Yep.
right.
And he
Okay.
came back to me another time and he goes, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, what's going on? He goes, why do you sound so white? And I'm all like, I didn't know I sounded white, and I didn't know you have to have, you sound, because I sound educated. And I'm not saying he wasn't educated, but a
Sure.
lot of black people will say, well, you just think you're too educated, or, you know, where's the
Yeah.
ebonics or the slang? Well, I just been around a lot of white people, and maybe I'm just picking up on their tones and how they speak.
Yeah.
You're kind of like you are the environment you're around. So I sound, you know, maybe a little bit different than people in the hood. So I can't say that I would feel 100% comfortable, because someone called me out and said, hey, you sound too white to be up in here. So
Yeah.
I guess there's a flip side on both sides.
Yeah,
So
sure. Now, how did your family? Where's this enslavement in your family? Let's
yeah,
go back and let's get to the
yes.
story. Let's say, okay,
Yeah. So in 1850s, 60s, my great grandmother, Elizabeth, and my great grandfather, Henry, were both slaves or enslaved in Covington, Kentucky. Um, they worked in the house. My great grandmother had worked in the home, and my great grandfather worked outside the home and in the home. They were trusted in slaves, so he was allowed to leave and deliver mail, and, you know, go places for his enslaver, and he would always come back. He was known to hold money, to do a lot of things for them. And with Elizabeth being in the home, she was treated a bit proper, a bit better than the ones outside of the home. But regardless of the fact, their enslaver was still, I like to change the names on them, they're animals themselves, treated her differently from other slaves. It is thought that he had children before Elizabeth and them connected. Um, and for some reason, they were like, you know what, enough is enough. And Elizabeth was pregnant, and I think that's a good enough reason to leave. So they had escaped, and they made their way from Covington, Kentucky, all the way up to Canada. And when they made it to Canada, they had given birth to their first child together in Canada. And
okay.
at
Let me
that
stop you
point,
there. Let me stop
yeah,
you there. How do you know this story?
a lot of it was just told through family members, and my
Okay,
father
okay,
was the last person that was able to tell me a lot of my history.
okay,
And I go back to like the Sunday mornings, Saturday mornings, we would learn our history. So
okay.
it was pretty much told from him, from his father to his mother, and then the mother from her mother and grandmother. So when they made it to Canada, they stayed there for a while, all while their capturer or their enslaver was looking for them, sent out people to catch them. They did find them, but they never brought them back home. And there's letters and correspondence between these capturers, the slave capturers, and their owners, along with letters from the slave owners to Elizabeth and Henry, asking them, why did they leave? You had it good here. Our children are so upset. I am the mockery of the community now because our slaves ran away on us. Didn't we give you enough? If you would have just asked for your freedom, we would have given it to you, you know? And it's like, then why did they leave? Why did you own them? Why did you think you owned them? So when they gave birth to their oldest child in Canada, at this point, Henry decided he would leave and go into Detroit to try to find a living in a home for his wife and the new baby.
Okay,
so
let me stop you there.
Yes.
This question comes to mind. What did their enslaver do? Did he own a big plantation or just had a
Yes.
few of them around the house? Do you know that story?
Yes, so he did have a large plantation, 2 big homes, which I visited the one plantation. It's not a plantation now. I visited one of the homes that Elizabeth and Henry had lived. So,
oh, really?
And I just, yes, it's still standing.
Okay. Did you cry?
Definitely. I'm sorry?
Did you cry?
I had a flood of emotions. Just to know, like, taking the path that they took to leave and the steps that they stood on and the doors that they opened and the grass that they stepped their foot on, it was definitely like different emotions running through me. Did not cry, but I was emotional.
Yeah, sure.
And when I went to the home, I knocked on the door, no one answered. And I don't know what it was, but something told me, like, no, just stay and just keep knocking. And I knocked, and the owner of the home was there. And she's like, be my guest, walk around the home, do what you like, look through the windows. It's totally fine. But she was remodeling. But they had a lot of the same, the doors were the same. She was like, nothing's changed. And it was just so real to be in the same environment that they were there. And the home definitely looked like it was from the 1800s. So, yeah.
Okay. How'd you find the house and all that kind of stuff? How'd you know where to go?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of research with the Royal Oak Historical Museum, and there's 2 men there, Don Draft and Bob Mueller. They're researchers. So when they found out that there was still living descendants in Royal Oak, we both have just been, back and forth, just trying to unarchive history of my family. So they were able to find their plantation because there's a correspondent letter from their enslaver to them. And so on the headline, it said the Bruce Plantation. So they were able to do research and find out where they were located and found the home that was still standing.
The people in the house now, that they're not descendants of the enslaver, though.
They are not. They are not.
So, okay. Yeah. Okay. So you walked in the house and saw it. Have you tried to find the descendants of the enslaver?
So a lot of them are gone, but some of them are still there. The enslaver himself was in jail. He was, I guess, fraud. He was a millionaire. He made lots of money. And so he, at a point, actually left too to go to Canada to hide out. So there was a lot of dirty working between him and his brother. I don't know where their descendants are. I don't know anything about them. I just know the name. So,
would you like to meet one of them to see if they know the story?
Oh, yeah, I would love that.
Really? Because I know people who've done that. I know a guy, he lives down the street from the house that his great-grandfather was enslaved on. Wow. And he says, I drive past it almost every day.
Yeah. No, I would love to have a sit down and just show them there is a face behind that freedom seeker. And this person is doing well. And those freedom seekers did amazing not in your control. they were able to make a living for themselves and for their descendants. So, I would love to have a sit down with them. So they know that, we're more than just someone that you thought you can control, that your family thought that they could control.
Do you know the story of how he escaped, how they escaped in the middle of the night?
It was in the middle of the night. And the thought is that they did use the Underground Railroad, the connections, and made their way up to Canada. I don't know the entire details, but as you can imagine, there's a big river, the Ohio River, because taking the path that I took, there's a long bridge. So, it makes you wonder
from
how
Cincinnati to Kentucky.
Yes.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. So how do we know how did they get across there? I don't know all that information, and I don't know how they made it up into Canada, but I do know that they left in the middle of the night. There's letters and correspondence about that. And they made their way into Canada. I don't know who they stayed with. But I would assume that they stayed with other people, freedom seekers, or people that like wanted to make sure that Black people had a safe environment to be in while they seek freedom. But after Elizabeth and Henry had their first child, Henry decided he'd leave and go into Detroit to find a living. And so when they found Detroit, you have to keep in mind it was a township, Royal Oak Township. So it was a lot of different cities. So you've got like Huntington Woods, Ferndale, Royal Oak, Clawson, Madison Heights. All those little cities was the Royal Oak Township. So he made it into the township, which is also the Saginaw Trail, which is Woodward, and found a job. He was able to bring Elizabeth back into the township, which is now Royal Oak, is where they stayed. He was able to purchase land after working, and he was able to purchase 7 acres. So, he was farming. He was a tile maker, a brick maker for a prominent family in Royal Oak, which is the Starr family. A lot of people growing up would say, oh, well, they were given, this land because they were enslaved. And I'm like, no, that's not what happened. They were still, hiding out because they didn't really establish living until after Abraham Lincoln had passed away. There's a story where my great-great-grandfather Henry was coming from Detroit and raced home to tell Elizabeth that Abraham Lincoln had passed away, and they both just grieved that evening. So, they weren't given something, and it was told that they were given this land by Abraham Lincoln. It was like, well, Abraham Lincoln died well after they were able to purchase all 7 acres. So like there was a lot of telephone going on. And I think for me and my father, before he passed away, we wanted to make sure the story was told correctly, because I don't want my children going into the same schools that I went to, allowing their history teacher tell them a lie about their history.
Yeah, I got you. Now, what do you know where that land is? I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Royal Oak. Is that the land you live on, or something like that? Where is that land at, and what does it look like? And
so
is it still in the family? May I ask those kind of questions?
Yeah. Okay, so right now the land is at Webster and Crooks Road, so it's 12.5 mile in Crooks. So it's about, they purchased 7 acres for each of their children. So they had 7 children. Right now, my sister and my brother are now the longest living landowners in Royal Oak. So we still have a portion of the land. It's not 7 acres. It's not 1 acre. It's about a half of it, just over a half an acre. And there's still a home on the homestead. And like I said, dating back from 1865-ish is land that is still owned by us.
Well, he had kids that before he married her, as you said.
I'm not sure. We won't know if they were actually really married, but
okay. But before her, he had kids. Have you found them and any of their descendants, anything like that, or did he ever go back and did they ever reconnect with those kids? Do you know that any of that?
So the corresponding letters was told that there's a letter. We can't find the letters that was sent to their enslavers, but we've got letters from the enslavers to them. And in one of the letters, it says, your daughters have grown to be fine women. So we believe there's at least 2 children that was left behind. I'm assuming they could not bring them because they were very young. And having to go the route that they had to go, I wouldn't want to bring my 2 babies along with me because we don't know what would happen. So they believe that there's 2 children. We don't know if it's Elizabeth's children too, but we do know that more than likely it is Henry's children that were left behind. In the letters, it is stated that, you know, they're grown up to be fine young women. So I'm assuming that they are doing well, or they were doing well. I have not had any connections to them, but my ancestors did go back to Kentucky to look for them, because there's letters saying that, oh, we've missed you, and they said that you're very healthy, and you know, I wish we were able to see you when you were here, when you traveled here. So I'm assuming that they went to go look for their babies.
Oh, okay. Well, let me ask you this. I don't know why this question. Were they lighter complected?
No, no.
You know what I'm
I've
saying?
got
Because they
one.
usually lighter complected ones get in the house, you hear them stories. So that
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily the
that was
case.
not. No, because I have a picture of my great 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 grandmother, the matriarch of them all, and she's dark. She's very dark.
Really?
Yeah. Now I can't say
Oh,
anything for Henry because we don't have pictures of him at all.
yeah. So now what happens down the bloodline? Like, do their kids end up, because they are the kind of people, did they end up going to college and stuff like that? Is those kind of some of the story, what
So
have you?
their grandchildren went to school in Royal Oak. So they've got grandkids, and their babies went to Royal Oak. So, and there's newspaper clippings saying that Ella, one of the children, you know, she was on the honor roll. She's done amazing. And then there is their grandchildren that went to school, and my great great uncle Sam, he's on the football team. He's the star student, star athlete. There's like a picture of him, and all his classmates were white,
Yeah.
and you know that's him because he's the only black child there. So they had a I won't even lie, like they had a really good upbringing in Royal Oak, and they
Yeah.
were like, when the mayor was announcing his running, he would have like dinner at their house. They would say like party will be at the Hamer family's house, and like so
Yeah.
they had a really good community behind their backs when they were living in Royal Oak.
Do you know where in Canada they ended up?
I don't.
Uh, because they might have had to just go past to Windsor or something like that,
Yeah.
to that. So now, how do y'all find these letters? Where are these letters?
So
Yeah, how does that go?
yeah,
When
so
you
a few of the pioneering families, um, I guess somehow ended up with the letters. We don't know how it was sent to them. There is like I don't know if it's a newspaper clipping, but I do remember when Elizabeth had passed away, her she wanted the Star family to have a lot of her things. So I'm assuming that a lot of things went to them and they held on to that. And when they passed away, they were able to donate it to the historical museum. So they
oh,
ended up with the letters.
so the
So
letters are on display somewhere where you can see
yes,
them at the historical museum.
yes, that's correct.
Any other documents, clothing,
Uh,
medals, anything like that that you all
no,
still have?
we've got pictures.
Pictures? Okay.
Yep, we've got pictures, and I don't know if we're gonna dive into that, but in the last 3 years, I've been really dedicated to opening up their story and allowing Royal Oak to continue learning about my family. A lot of people don't realize that some people just don't feel comfortable telling their story, but I want their story to be told because there's been so much mix up growing up, and other families in Royal Oak will come to me and say, hey, I didn't learn that. I learned it differently. So, I want people to learn the truth. And with that truth, they have to learn that, like, they weren't treated, their enslavers didn't treat them the best. But I do want them to know that while they were in Royal Oak and establishing living for their families, there was nothing but good things that came out of it. It wasn't until like later on in life when their grandchildren started living in Royal Oak, things started to happen differently. I have a great great uncle that was shot and killed at the bus stop. Um, and it was
By the
all in
police
the
or something
news.
like that, or who did
I'm
that? What
sorry.
was that? What's that story? Can you tell it? You
Um,
mind? Yeah.
I guess he was sitting at a bus station, and I don't know the whole details, and he was
Yeah.
shot and killed. And it was all in the Royal Oak newspapers. You know, our beloved family member, the only Black family member, has been shot and killed. Funeral will be hosted in their home. You know, they were definitely known within the city, and they grieved. The city grieved for them when they passed away.
Oh,
A lot of the palm barriers were of the white community, so they definitely was respected within the community.
oh, I love it. I love it. So what about other cousins? I mean, you have other cousins
Yeah,
somewhere. Where
yeah.
are they? Are they still in Kentucky, or
I
how did that go?
honestly, I don't know, because when Elizabeth and Henry left, they had 7 children, and out of those 7 children, only one girl had children. So, and she had 7 children.
Oh,
And so out of those 7 children, she only had one. So it wasn't like a lot of cousins that was spread out. It was just by one family member. And
oh,
that's when the maiden name was changed multiple times. So it was
yeah.
Hamer, changed to Finch, then changed to Wilkins, and I was raised as a Wilkins.
Oh, okay. One more, couple more questions. What,
Yeah,
what's the his? You want to write a book on this, or
yeah.
what would you like to do with this story?
So as we speak now, the historical museum, Don and Bob are and works with along with me are writing a book and telling their story, the correct story. Um, you know, aside from the book, during 2020 COVID time, it was a hard time for everyone, but during that time, I was able to really get in tune with my strong bloodline in Royal Oak. And at that point, my father and I did a lot of researching together, which brought Royal Oak even closer to us. And at that point, right before his passing, unfortunately, he didn't make it to know that I was able to rename a park in Royal Oak named after my
Oh,
ancestors.
I love it.
So yeah,
Yeah,
so now
yeah,
we have
yeah.
Hamer Finch Wilkins Park, and that's going to be dedicated this coming spring. And in that time, since we had that one portrait of my great 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 grandmother, the matriarch, there's going to be a sculptor that's going to be sculpting her bust, which is going to be right in the middle of the park. And
Oh,
it's going to give a
okay.
description of one of the first Black pioneering family in Royal Oak.
Yeah,
So, you know, it will go into history. So therefore, like, history will be told correctly and
yeah.
by the voice of their descendant.
You say told correctly. Some other people have already been telling this story, and they got their own slant to it.
Yeah,
Is it like the story of Royal Oak? Let me just tell you, but it's not told correctly. Where is
correct.
it told at? Tell that. Yeah, how does that go?
Yeah. So growing up, I never was told the story while in school. But if you were to speak to Bob and Dob, which is an older gentleman, they're about in their 60s, they were told that we only were living there up until the 60s. We left because of different reasons. But it was, you know, oh, there was that one Black family, and you know, they ran away from slavery and they just started living here. And it wasn't really a story behind it. It was
Mm.
just a little bit of pieces, and that's all you got. And I don't know if it's because they didn't want to tell the entire story, because that would take away from the achievements of them. Instead of talking about the achievements of Black people, having two freedom seekers risk their lives to settle into Royal Oak and make a living for themselves, purchase land for their children, work alongside with other Black or other white people, and feel comfortable enough. Can you imagine like having to run away from animals that were white that were enslaving you, to have to be around other white people and have to feel comfortable? I can't imagine how they felt at night.
I got you. I got you on
I
that. Good
can't imagine
point.
if they ever thought that, like, oh, somebody's looking for me. Will my home be broken up? So they changed their names
Oh,
to
really?
Hamers. They were the Bruces. But for some reason, I don't know if it was a lot of respect for their enslaver, or Henry was just a very average name used, but he took the first name of his enslaver. I don't know if he took it or he just picked Henry, but that was his enslaver's name, was Henry. So my ancestor's name was Henry Hamer, but he changed the Hamer. He changed the last name to Hamer. So I don't know if there was respect there or it was just an original name that he just picked out.
Yeah. Is there a question I have not asked you or something like this? Is there something that I don't know?
No,
in this regard, okay.
So right now, like where my ancestors are laid to rest, all my family members are within the same area or not, or they're across the street as well. But now the national, hopefully I'm saying this right, National Underground Railroad Freedom Seeking organization has now nominated Royal Oak as one of the markers. So, you know, when you come into Royal Oak, that's going to be another thing to look out for, to travel through the journey of my ancestors.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love it. Yeah. How do people follow you? Do you have a website? Do you want people? Do you do public speaking on this?
I do.
That kind. How do we promote you and what you're doing?
You just email me. I don't have a website as of yet, but people find me on Facebook, Instagram, just Lakeesha Honeybee or Lakeesha Morrison. Okay. But I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of speaking at the Historical Museum, talking of my family. They just found a recording of my great aunt telling the story of my ancestors. And that was very powerful.
Sure.
Just hearing a descendant speak of her grandmother and the achievements that they made while trying to get to Royal Oak. I've spoken for Black Lives Matter within our city. I drew over 3,000 people for marches, and you know, I want a sense of belonging for my children and their children and other children of color in a community that is still, you know, pretty white. But I want them to feel a sense of belonging while trying to be able to coexist with white people too.
You still in Royal Oak? I guess last question. Yes. Could you leave or you this is your spot. This is your spot in the world. You couldn't leave.
I'm rooted here.
Thing. Yeah.
Yes, I'm rooted here. Although I don't stay on the homestead itself, but like my connections to Royal Oak is here, and it probably will be here for the rest of my life. Because I want to be able to stay somewhere where my ancestors worked very hard for me to be. So I don't want to just give up and leave it, because, you know, I want them to feel proud of me and proud of where I'm going and the things that I've achieved. And so Royal Oak is going to be home for the rest of my life.
I love it. Well, hey, thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah. Hopefully I touched on a lot of good things.
Yeah. Was that a story for you?
Yeah.
I'm so blessed to have found you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm blessed to be here, to be able to tell the story and the right story and continue. And if I had to tell people a few things, I would suggest, if you want to get to know your history, start within your city, look up ancestry.com, find your local historical museums and see if they have something about your family there. You never know, they might have a picture. And going to pictures. If you have pictures that you are holding, make sure you write names on them, because as you get older, as the next generation look back at these pictures, they don't have a name to that picture. It's no use. There's no use to having it. Put names on pictures. Get audios of your family members. Speak to your great grandparents. Write notes, write letters, write things down so that the next generation can have that to look back and say, write the connection. Do family trees. You know, in old Bibles, you would have these family trees. We don't have that anymore. So take the time, write things digitally, or, you know, type it out digitally, write it out, make sure that you make those connections, picking up a phone and calling, anyone that you can think of to make those connections, because you don't want other people telling your history. You want to be able to tell your own history. You know,
There you
go
go.
outside that box. Make sure you feel comfortable doing that. Find somebody else who would do this with you.
Yes,
So
sure. Love it.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
you're very welcome.
Everybody hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. Hit the like button on this video. There is no love button, and I know you loved it. Hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations.
Yes.
Follow this sister. We're gonna. I'm gonna be at the park at that groundbreaking.
Yes.
You're right up the street from me. So I'm gonna stay in the loop. We're gonna have some. We're gonna talk offline because I want to meet you and all that other good stuff, and be a part of what you're doing and promoting it as best I possibly can. And I say this, and I mean this, that it is a beautiful thing that you heard those stories. You sat there wide-eyed. You went through those experiences. You came out as you have. It didn't help you lose nothing.
No.
And then you took the mantle and said, okay, and I'm gonna keep this a part of me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lose me. Because at one point you thought, well, hey, this might not be so cool. And but nonetheless, it did not happen. And now you're sharing this with other people. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It has become your mission to do this. That's a beautiful thing. And so I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing. I love what you become. And I love that you telling your kids so that they can continue to grow. And the people in that township, y'all got to respect us and understand us. And this is the truth.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying this. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it doesn't hurt to ask questions. If you feel uncomfortable, in order to feel comfortable, you have to be uncomfortable. So asking those questions, go up to the next Black person and say, hey, I have a few questions for you. And I guarantee you that's going to be a good conversation. The more knowledge you know, the more respected you will be. You can't just go on through life and just expect that because I have one Black friend that I'm kosher with all Black people. No. You have to get to know everyone around you. And I'm still trying to feel comfortable within my own skin and around my own race, because I was always rooted in Royal Oak and I never got the chance to really go outside of my comfort zone to get that story outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I love it. Everybody, that's the final word.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye.